does this become energy for your cells? Let me show you.
Okay, so let's talk about how we get that burger into our bodies to be used as sugar inside cells. So that is exactly what's going to happen. And so it's going to be metabolized particularly by the small intestine with help from the pancreas and its digestive enzymes in order to become a broken down carbohydrate and then ultimately a simple sugar known as glucose. A new glucose is going to be represented as these raisins. And we try and keep our glucose levels inside our blood within a pretty narrow range of about 8 millimoles per liter to 4 millimoles per liter. There's other conversions you can use, but that's typically what we're going to do. And for the most part, we're going to have a lot of peaks and valleys when it comes to this, and it's all dependent on the concentrations of sugar inside the blood and what we do, whether we're eating or fasting and so on and so forth. So that is basically the first portion. So we end up with that burger that's going to get metabolized with the help of the pancreas and the small intestine. And then that burger is ultimately going to be broken down into a small enough piece that's going to become more sugar or more glucose inside the blood after it's metabolized. And so when we have high points of glucose, like we see here in this, that's going to end up with this peak. So we have a high concentration of glucose. What occurs when we have high concentrations of glucose? We're going to have insulin that's going to be secreted from the pancreas and it's going to be pushed into the bloodstream. And that insulin is going to bind to our cell's gate, our insulin receptor, and it's going to open this gate to have sugar that's going to be used as energy. And without that ability of insulin to open that gate, then sugar can't get into the cells. This is how hyperglycemia and potentially diabetes can occur, is this we don't have enough insulin or a complete lack thereof. So that's how metabolism is going to work and how cells are going to be nourished with sugar. But insulin also is going to prepare for a time when we don't have food, where I skip a meal or something along those lines. So insulin is also going to promote, after the cells are nourished, the binding of glucose like so, and create glycogen. And glycogen is just bound up glucose like so. It's basically in a storage facility, and it's going to be shipped off to the liver into the muscles. And so it's going to be used for later. So let's say that it's been a few hours since I've had that burger, and now my glucose levels are starting to deplete, and I'm getting lower at the lower end here, and I haven't had a chance to eat yet, so I'm hungry. My glucose levels are now quite depleted, and they're low. What occurs at that point? Well, when we have a decrease of blood glucose levels to this point, and there's no food that's going to be entered into the stomach here, then our body goes and says, okay, let's secrete glucagon. And what glucagon is going to do is it's going to go to the liver and the muscle cells and say, hey, I need to use your stored glucose in order to be used as energy. So it goes to the glycogen here, and this glycogen is going to break down into glucose again and to be entered into the bloodstream. And by breaking down that glycogen and entering into the bloodstream, we're going to bring our blood sugars back up. And then glucagon is going to be taken away, and then we're going to have higher concentrations of insulin, so that way this gate opens again, and then more sugar is going to enter that cell. So that is kind of the process of how we use insulin and glucagon in order to promote the sugar retention and as well as the sugar usage in cells, as well as using it for later when we need to in order to break down glycogen stores that are in the liver and the muscles.
One of the hardest things that paramedic students have to do is make decisions when they walk on an ambulance because they don't have the experience in order to do that. And so what we've done is solve that problem. We have built dozens of interactive scenarios so you can see the patients and see their vital signs and answer questions that you see in front of you and get immediate feedback. So when you walk on an ambulance, you feel more confident treating your patients.